Emma Lawson stepped off the shuttle, her boots touching the smooth, glowing surface of Zirion's royal landing platform. The sky above shimmered with violet and gold streaks, casting an otherworldly light across the city of floating towers and hanging gardens. She took a deep breath, her heart beating fast. This was no ordinary assignment. She was a human, sent across the stars to teach the alien princes of a world she had only seen in reports and holographic images. The royal palace loomed ahead, enormous and elegant. Its walls glimmered like polished crystal, and long, thin bridges connected towers that seemed to float in the air. Emma had read the manuals, studied the protocols, and prepared herself for the cultural differences. But nothing could truly prepare someone for stepping inside a living palace, full of alien life. "Welcome, human teacher," a soft voice said. Emma turned to see a Zirion court official. He was tall and lithe, with pale blue skin that seemed to sparkle under the light. "I am Selvar, chief advisor to the royal family. The princes await your introduction." Emma nodded, trying to hide the nervous excitement in her eyes. "It is an honor, Sir Selvar. I will do my best." Selvar led her through the palace halls, each corridor lined with floating lanterns that hummed with a soft energy. The walls were alive with plants that shimmered and pulsed gently, responding to their presence. Emma's mouth went dry. This place was alive in a way she had never imagined. Finally, they entered a large chamber filled with sunlight streaming through transparent walls. At the center stood 3 figures, tall and regal, each radiating a presence that was both commanding and youthful. They were the princes. "Emma Lawson," Selvar announced. "These are the princes Taris, Lovan, and Kale. You are their teacher now." The eldest, Taris, with silver hair that seemed to float around his head, studied her silently. His eyes, a deep green, scanned her from head to toe, as if trying to understand how a human could possibly teach a royal Zirion. Lovan, the middle brother, was more restless. He shifted from foot to foot, frowning slightly, curious but skeptical. The youngest, Kale, barely taller than Emma herself, looked up at her with wide, cautious eyes. Emma forced herself to stand straight, projecting confidence even though her stomach was twisting with nerves. "It is my honor to teach you," she said clearly. "I will share knowledge, skills, and strategies that will help you as future leaders of Zirion." Taris raised an eyebrow, and Lovan let out a small laugh. Kale, however, nodded politely. Emma felt a flicker of hope. At least one of them seemed willing to listen. "The princes have many subjects to learn," Selvar explained. "From diplomacy to science, strategy to history. It will be challenging, human teacher. Are you prepared?" "I am," Emma said firmly. "I have trained for this." Selvar gave a small nod, his expression unreadable. "Very well. Your first lesson begins now. Observe and adapt. The princes respond differently to every approach." Emma's first lesson was not easy. The princes tested her immediately. They asked questions she had not anticipated. Some trivial, some complex. Taris challenged her with logic puzzles that required careful thinking. Lovan interrupted constantly, making jokes that tested her patience. Kale observed quietly, occasionally offering insightful questions that surprised her. At first, Emma felt overwhelmed. She was a human in a palace of beings who could float, manipulate energy, and process information at speeds far beyond normal humans. But she reminded herself why she had been chosen. Humans had unique problem-solving skills, creativity, and adaptability. She began to adjust her teaching style. Instead of lecturing, she engaged them in experiments. They studied the principles of energy flow by moving small, levitating orbs through complex mazes. Emma encouraged them to argue, to debate, and to make mistakes. Slowly, the princes began to respond. Kale was the first to show real improvement. He struggled at first, but soon learned to control the energy orbs with precision, following Emma's guidance. Terrace remained skeptical, but he started asking her questions outside the lesson, seeking clarification on concepts. Even Lovan, who had been disruptive, began to participate seriously, his curiosity overtaking his initial boredom. By the third day, Emma realized the princes were not only learning, they were beginning to respect her. The palace staff, who had been skeptical, started to nod at her quietly in passing, acknowledging her influence. Emma allowed herself a small smile. One evening, after the formal lessons had ended, Emma found herself in the palace garden, exhausted but exhilarated. The garden floated between towers, with translucent bridges connecting platforms filled with alien plants. The air smelled sweet, like a mixture of flowers she could not name. She sat on a bench, letting the glowing petals of a nearby plant brush her arm. Kael approached quietly. "Teacher," he said softly, "may I speak with you?" Emma smiled. "Of course, Kael. What is on your mind?" I don't want lessons to end," he admitted. "I feel different when I learn from you. I understand things better. I like it." Emma's chest warmed. This was more than academic success. She had connected with at least one of the princes on a personal level. "Thank you, Kael," she said gently. "I enjoy teaching you. You have a bright mind. Remember, learning is not just about lessons. It is about curiosity, about asking questions no one else asks, about thinking for yourself." Kael nodded thoughtfully, then left quietly, leaving Emma alone under the glowing sky. She realized then that her mission would not be easy, but it would be meaningful. These princes were not just students. They were beings who could shape the future of their planet. She could guide them, and in doing so, perhaps she would change the course of history. The next morning brought a new challenge. Taurus and Lovan had apparently conspired to test her further. During a physics experiment involving controlled gravity fields, they deliberately created unstable conditions, forcing Emma to act quickly to prevent the orbs from crashing into the delicate garden structures. Emma's mind raced. She calculated, predicted, and guided the princes step by step. Her human intuition, her ability to think flexibly under pressure, allowed her to stabilize the experiment. The orbs floated perfectly once again. Terrace looked at her, a rare smile touching his lips. "You are clever, human. Perhaps you are more than we expected." Emma nodded. "And perhaps you are capable of more than you realize, Prince Taurus. Learning is about effort as much as talent." By the end of the week, Emma had established herself firmly. The princes, though still testing her limits, had begun to accept her authority and guidance. She had earned their attention, their curiosity, and their budding respect. More importantly, she had begun to understand the subtle personalities of each prince, the cautious Kael, the bold Lovan, and the calculating Terrace. Emma stood in the main hall, looking out over the floating city of Zirion. The sun's golden rays reflected off the crystalline towers, casting long shadows that danced across the palace. She felt a sense of purpose she had never known before. This was more than teaching. This was shaping minds, nurturing wisdom, and building bridges between species. A small voice interrupted her thoughts. "Teacher," Kael called from behind, holding a levitating tablet. "I completed the challenge you gave me yesterday. May I show you?" Emma turned, smiling. "Of course, Kael. Let's see what you have done." As Kael demonstrated his solution, Lovan and Taurus approached as well. They listened, silently, evaluating, questioning, learning. Emma felt a surge of pride. Humanity might be far from home, but here, among the stars, humans could make a difference. Humans could teach, guide, and inspire even the most extraordinary alien minds. The first part of her journey was complete. The princes were learning. The bond was forming. And Emma knew that this was only the beginning. The human teacher had arrived on Zirion, and nothing would ever be the same again. Emma had grown more comfortable in the palace over the past week, but she knew the hardest part of her mission was just beginning. Teaching the alien princes was not simply about facts and numbers, it was about shaping their minds, their character, and their understanding of the world beyond Zirion. Each prince had a unique personality, and Emma needed to challenge them without breaking their spirits. The morning began with a new lesson, this time on diplomacy and problem-solving. Emma led the princes to a chamber that overlooked the city. Floating holographic panels projected scenes of neighboring planets, trade negotiations, and interstellar treaties. Today, Emma began, we will explore how to solve conflicts and build alliances. Leaders must understand that every decision affects not just their people, but entire worlds. Terrace folded his arms, skeptical. And what makes a human qualified to teach us this? You do not even know the customs of Zirion fully. Emma met his gaze calmly. I may not know all your customs, but humans have faced conflicts, both small and great. I can teach you principles, strategies, and critical thinking. That knowledge can be adapted to any situation, even yours. Levon snorted, clearly unconvinced. Principles sound boring. I want to know how to win, not just talk. Emma smiled. Winning is easy. Leading wisely is hard. Today, you will learn both. She activated a simulation. Holographic planets rotated in space above them, showing territories, resources, and populations. Each prince was tasked with negotiating a trade agreement between rival worlds. The challenge was complex. One planet required food, another needed technology, and a third demanded protection from pirates. The princes had to think logically, ethically, and creatively. Kale went first. He hesitated at first, his young mind analyzing every detail. But Emma guided him gently, asking questions that forced him to consider the needs of all parties. Slowly, Kale proposed a plan that satisfied all three planets. His solution was clever and surprisingly fair, earning a small nod from Terrace and a grunt of approval from Levon. Terrace approached next, confident but rigid. His first attempt focused only on gaining power for his own planet. Emma challenged him, asking, what would happen if the other planets rejected your plan? Terrace paused, frowning. He had never thought beyond victory. Emma's simple question forced him to consider diplomacy as more than a contest. After several attempts, Terrace proposed a plan that balanced strength with fairness. Emma's smile widened. He was learning, not just thinking like a leader, but thinking like a responsible one. Levon went last. At first, he tried to joke his way through the exercise, suggesting ridiculous trades and impossible alliances. But when Emma calmly redirected him, he began to think seriously. He was competitive, yes, but he had a sharp mind that, when focused, could solve problems faster than most adults. Within the simulation, he found a creative solution that no one else had imagined, impressing even Terrace. After the lesson, Emma gathered the princes in the garden to reflect. The glowing plants responded to their emotions, pulsing softly when they were thoughtful and brightening when they felt pride. Remember, Emma said, leadership is more than power. It is understanding, empathy, and clever thinking. You must balance your instincts with knowledge. Kale listened quietly, absorbing every word. Terrace, though still proud, seemed to consider Emma's perspective for the first time. Even Levon, usually restless, stayed near, asking thoughtful questions. Their growing bond was tested that afternoon. A sudden alarm rang through the palace. The cosmic storm that sometimes passed near Zirion was approaching faster than predicted. The palace trembled slightly as the wind currents outside became turbulent. Emma realized this was more than a drill. Selvar appeared quickly. Human teacher. The princes must be protected. But this storm is unusual. Its energy can disrupt the palace systems. We need calm minds to manage it. Emma took charge, Princes, this is your first real test. Remember what I taught you. Use logic, work together, and keep calm. I will guide you. The princes followed her into the control chamber. Panels flashed red and yellow, displaying the storm's progress. Holographic weather models showed massive energy surges. Emma instructed the princes to stabilize shields around the palace. It was complex. The shields required precise energy manipulation and quick problem-solving. Kale's hands shook at first, but Emma encouraged him. Trust your instincts. You know the principles. Slowly, Kale adjusted the shield matrix, stabilizing one quadrant. Terrace calculated the next section with cold precision, while Lovan used creative thinking to redirect energy from less critical systems. Together, under Emma's guidance, they managed to hold the palace shields just long enough for the storm to pass. Afterward, the princes were exhausted but exhilarated. They had faced a real crisis and survived. Emma smiled at them, her pride shining through. You did well. This is what leadership feels like. That evening, in the floating gardens, Kale approached Emma again. Teacher, I was scared, but your calm made me believe I could do it. I think I understand more now. Not just about lessons, but about myself. Emma placed a hand on his shoulder. That is the most important lesson, Kale. Knowledge is only useful if you believe in yourself and use it wisely. Meanwhile, Terrace and Lovan observed quietly from a distance. They had their pride, yes, but they could not deny Emma's influence. Even Terrace, who rarely showed emotion, nodded slightly. Lovan, still restless, seemed thoughtful as he watched Emma interact with Kale. Over the next few days, Emma introduced new lessons: advanced mathematics, alien history, energy manipulation, and even basic combat strategy. Each lesson was challenging, but she made them engaging, often using interactive simulations that forced the princes to think quickly. Kale excelled in theoretical subjects, showing patience and precision. Terrace dominated in logic and strategy, though he sometimes clashed with Emma when his pride got in the way. Lovan, unpredictable but brilliant, continued to surprise everyone with creative solutions. Emma had to adapt constantly, treating each prince as an individual, guiding their strengths and correcting weaknesses. One evening, after a particularly long day, the princes sat with Emma in the palace lounge. Floating lights cast a soft glow over the room. Kale leaned against her side, tired but attentive. Terrace was silent, reflecting. Lovan fidgeted, but for once, he was listening. You are all improving, Emma said softly. But learning is not just about success. It is about curiosity, failure, and growth. You will face challenges that seem impossible. You must rely on each other, and on what you have learned. Kale looked up, his eyes wide. Teacher, will you stay with us always? Emma paused, caught off guard. She had not expected the princes to feel so attached already. I do not know, Kale. My mission is to teach, but I hope to guide you for as long as I am needed. Terrace, overhearing, said quietly, Human, you are capable. Perhaps more than we believed. Your lessons are not just knowledge, they are understanding. I respect that. Lovan grinned, his usual mischievous spark returning. I suppose you are not so bad, teacher. Maybe we underestimated humans. Emma smiled. For the first time, she felt that she belonged in this alien world, not just as a teacher, but as someone who could make a difference. She realized that her role was more than instructing the princes. It was shaping the future of Zirion itself. The night ended with Emma walking through the floating gardens, reflecting on the week. The cosmic storm had tested the princes. Her lessons had begun to take root, and a bond of trust had formed. She knew challenges would grow more difficult, but she also knew that humans, through intelligence, courage, and heart, could rise to meet them. And in that moment, under the glowing skies of Zirion, Emma understood that her presence here was not just an assignment. It was a purpose. She would teach, guide, and inspire, no matter how alien the world around her. The human teacher had not only earned the prince's respect, she had begun to earn their trust, their admiration, and perhaps, in time, their hearts. Weeks passed since Emma had arrived on Zirion, and the bond between her and the princes had grown stronger. Each day was a challenge. Each lesson a step toward shaping the young leaders. Emma had taught them history, science, strategy, and diplomacy, but now she wanted to go deeper. Leadership was not just knowledge, it was about judgment, responsibility, and heart. The morning started with an unusual assignment. Emma gathered the princes in the palace observatory, a room that floated high above the city, with transparent walls, giving a breathtaking view of the stars. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing neighboring planets with complex political relationships, trade routes, and resources. Today, Emma began, you will face a real test of judgment. You will make decisions that affect not just one world, but many. Your choices will have consequences, and your ability to balance ethics and strategy will be tested. Terrace, as always, looked skeptical. And how is this different from previous lessons? Emma smiled. Before, you focused on facts and solutions. Now, you must consider morality, responsibility, and the long-term effects of leadership. Decisions are not always easy, and sometimes there is no perfect answer. Levon rolled his eyes but leaned closer to study the projections. Kale, as always, listened quietly, absorbing every word. Emma activated a simulation, a diplomatic crisis between two planets. One planet had suffered a famine, while the other possessed excess food, but demanded high prices. A third planet had a fleet of ships capable of transporting supplies, but insisted on payment in technology. The challenge was to resolve the crisis without creating resentment or future conflict. Kael approached first. His solution was careful and logical, prioritizing fairness and empathy. He suggested that the wealthy planet donate part of its resources freely, while the third planet could be compensated with non-critical technology. His approach was slow but effective, and Emma nodded in approval. Terrace, however, tried a more strategic approach. He proposed a plan that would give his own planet influence over the others, ensuring power and protection in future negotiations. Emma challenged him gently. Terrace, consider the future consequences. Will your plan foster trust or resentment? Terrace frowned. He had always been confident in strategy, but Emma's question forced him to think beyond immediate gain. After several adjustments, he developed a plan that balanced influence with fairness, earning Emma's rare smile. Loven, unpredictable as ever, initially joked about the scenario. Why not just give everyone what they want and call it a day? He said, grinning. But Emma refused to let him ignore the challenge. Gradually, he used his creativity to craft an unorthodox solution, leveraging trade, resources, and timing to resolve the crisis while minimizing conflict. Emma was impressed. Even Terrace admitted the solution was clever. After the simulation ended, Emma guided the princes in reflection. Leadership is not just solving problems, she said. It is understanding people, predicting consequences, and sometimes making hard choices that others may not agree with. Courage and wisdom are both required. That evening, a quieter moment revealed the emotional side of their lessons. Emma and Kale walked through the palace gardens, the glowing plants reflecting softly in the water of floating ponds. Kale looked thoughtful. Teacher, he said softly, I think I understand more about responsibility now, but I also feel afraid. What if I make a mistake? Emma placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Mistakes are part of learning, Kale. Courage is not the absence of fear, but acting despite it. Remember, you have the knowledge, and you have the ability to make things right if you think carefully and act wisely. Kale nodded, his eyes reflecting both determination and the vulnerability of youth. Emma realized that teaching these princes was not just about knowledge, it was about shaping their hearts, their judgment, and their confidence. Meanwhile, Terrace and Lavan observed quietly from a distance. Terrace rarely admitted admiration, but he had begun to respect Emma's intelligence and guidance. Lavan, who usually resisted structure, seemed to appreciate the freedom Emma gave him to think creatively. The next day brought an unexpected challenge. A delegation from a neighboring planet arrived, seeking negotiation for a joint defense treaty. Emma decided this would be a real test for the princes. "You will lead this negotiation," she told them. "I will advise, but you will make the decisions. Remember what you have learned about diplomacy, fairness, and strategy." The princes prepared. Kael reviewed every detail carefully, anticipating questions and concerns. Terrace focused on projecting authority and ensuring the kingdom's interests were protected. Lavan studied the delegation's behavior, looking for opportunities to innovate and negotiate creatively. The meeting began smoothly, but tensions rose quickly. The delegation demanded concessions that could weaken Zirian's position. Terrace wanted to push back forcefully, while Kael hesitated, unsure of how to balance fairness with strategy. Lovan, sensing an opportunity, suggested a compromise that would satisfy both sides while maintaining Zirian's strength. Emma observed quietly, ready to step in only if necessary. She was proud. The princes applied everything she had taught them: logic, empathy, courage, and creativity. The negotiation ended successfully, with both sides pleased, and the delegation departed with respect for the young leaders. Later, in the palace lounge, the princes reflected on the day. Kael spoke first. "I never thought I could handle something so important. But I did, and I felt proud." Terrace, unusually soft-spoken, said, "You have taught us more than facts, human. You have taught us judgment. I respect that." Lavan grinned, still mischievous, but thoughtful. "You're not bad, teacher. I admit it. You make us think differently." Emma smiled, her heart full. The princes were no longer just students. They were beginning to become capable leaders, able to face challenges on their own. And she realized that her influence had gone deeper than she had imagined. That night, as Emma prepared her notes for the next day, Kael returned quietly to the garden. "Teacher, thank you. Not just for teaching, but for believing in us." Emma felt a lump in her throat. "Kael, it is my honor. You have all shown me that humans and Zirians can learn from each other. Knowledge, courage, and respect. These are universal." Kael smiled, a mixture of relief and admiration. "I hope you will stay." Emma paused. She had known this day would come, the moment when the princes would show attachment beyond lessons. And she realized she had grown attached as well. This mission was no longer just about teaching, it was about connection, trust, and guidance. Over the next few days, the lessons became more complex. Emma introduced interstellar strategy, ethical dilemmas, and advanced energy manipulation. The princes faced challenges that tested not only their intellect but also their judgment and patience. Emma guided them carefully, observing their strengths and weaknesses. Terrace was brilliant at strategy but needed reminders about empathy. Lovan was creative and bold, but sometimes impulsive. Kael was thoughtful and careful, but occasionally hesitant. Emma balanced her teaching to nurture each one, ensuring they could work individually and as a team. One evening, the princes invited Emma to a private chamber, decorated with glowing murals of their ancestors. They had prepared a surprise. Each had created a project using what they had learned. Kael, a detailed map of Zirian's resources. Terrace, a strategic plan for defense and trade. And Lovan, a new energy system design. Emma examined their work, amazed by their creativity, precision, and insight. This is extraordinary. You have applied knowledge, judgment, and imagination. You have grown beyond what I could have hoped for in such a short time. Kale looked shyly at her. We could not have done this without you, teacher. You guided us, challenged us, and believed in us. We are grateful. Terrace nodded silently, while Loven grinned and shrugged, pretending to be casual but clearly proud. Emma realized that her role had become more than instruction. She had become a mentor, a guide, and a trusted presence in the lives of these extraordinary beings. As she walked through the floating gardens that night, watching the stars glimmer above the city, Emma reflected on her journey. The princes were ready for challenges she had not even imagined. And she understood that the lessons were not only theirs, they were hers as well. She had learned patience, empathy, and the extraordinary potential of connection across species. In that moment, Emma knew that the final phase of her mission was approaching. The princes were prepared to lead, but the bond she had formed with them would be tested, and she could not predict what choices they or she would have to make when the lessons ended. One thing was certain. The human teacher had become more than a guide. She had become a part of Xirion, a bridge between human wisdom and alien potential. And the princes, for all their royalty and power, had begun to rely on her in ways that were deeper than knowledge alone. Emma smiled at the glowing gardens, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and opportunities. But she felt ready. Together, human and Xirions could face anything, and perhaps, change the course of history forever. The final week of Emma's assignment had arrived, and a quiet tension filled the palace. The princes had learned more than she could have hoped for. And yet, both she and they knew that her formal role as their teacher was coming to an end. The thought of leaving weighed heavily on Emma, though she tried to focus on the work at hand. This morning, Emma gathered the princes in the main training chamber. Holographic simulations floated in the air, displaying trade disputes, energy crises, and defensive strategies across Xirion and neighboring planets. Today's lesson would be the most difficult yet. The princes would act entirely independently, while Emma observed, intervening only if they truly failed. Today, you lead, Emma announced. No guidance unless absolutely necessary. This is your chance to apply everything you have learned: strategy, diplomacy, ethics, and teamwork. Kale's eyes widened. We do this alone? Emma nodded. I will watch. But the decisions are yours. Mistakes will happen. But those mistakes will teach you more than any lesson I could give. Terrace straightened, his usual confidence returning. Loven grinned, clearly enjoying the challenge. Kale took a deep breath, steadied himself, and began focusing on the task. The princes faced a simulated crisis. A sudden rebellion on a distant planet that threatened trade and stability in the sector. Kale carefully assessed the situation, proposing diplomatic outreach to calm tensions. Terrace considered military strategy, weighing the costs and benefits of intervention. Loven suggested innovative solutions, combining Kale's diplomacy with Terrace's strategic approach to create a comprehensive plan. Emma observed silently, proud of the balance they had achieved. Each prince used his strengths, but also adapted to the weaknesses of the others. It was more than knowledge, it was leadership, collaboration, and judgment under pressure. By the end of the exercise, the simulation reported a successful resolution. Peace restored, trade routes maintained, and minimal casualties. The princes had managed on their own, demonstrating growth that far exceeded expectations. Excellent work, Emma said, her voice warm with pride. You have shown not only intelligence, but courage, judgment, and teamwork. You are ready to lead Xirion with wisdom and fairness. Kale smiled shyly. We could not have done it without your lessons, teacher. You guided us, even when you did not intervene directly. Terrace, usually reserved, added quietly. You taught us more than knowledge. You taught us perspective. That is invaluable. Lovan grinned, leaning casually against a console. Yeah, I'll admit it. You're not just smart. You make us better too. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had expected satisfaction from teaching, but the prince's words struck deeper than any formal acknowledgement ever could. She realized then that her role had become more than instruction. She had become a mentor, a guide, and a friend. Later, in the quiet of the palace gardens, the princes approached Emma together. Kale stepped forward first. Teacher, will you leave after this? You have been part of our lives. He hesitated, unsure how to finish the thought. Emma knelt beside him, her hand brushing the glowing petals of a nearby plant. Kale, my mission is to teach, but my heart has grown attached to all of you. I do not know what the future will bring. Terrace, standing behind Kale, rarely expressed emotion, but his eyes were steady. Human, your presence has changed us. You guided us to think, to judge, to understand. Losing that would be difficult. Levan, never one to hide his feelings, grinned awkwardly. Yeah, you're good. Really good. I think we want you to stay. Emma's breath caught. She had anticipated this conversation, but hearing the prince's words stirred something unexpected in her. Her time on Zirion had been about lessons, challenges, and growth. But it had also been about connection. Humans could teach, yes, but they could also inspire, guide, and form bonds that crossed worlds. Emma began, but words failed her. Instead, she let the silence convey her feelings. She had learned as much from the princes as they had from her. Her heart told her that leaving would feel like abandoning a part of herself. Kale stepped closer, eyes pleading. Teacher, please stay. Not just as our mentor, but as part of Zirion. We need you. Terrace nodded silently, and Lovan gave a small, sincere smile. Emma realized that her influence had become irreplaceable, not merely academic, but emotional and moral. She had shaped their minds, yes, but she had also touched their hearts. I will stay, Emma finally said, her voice steady. Not because I must, but because I want to. You have all shown me that humans and Zirians can learn from each other, and more than that, we can trust, respect, and care for one another. The princes' faces brightened. Kale hugged her lightly, while Terrace gave a rare, approving nod. Lovan punched her shoulder gently, a grin spreading across his face. It was not formal, it was not ceremonial, but it was real. The next days were filled with celebration and preparation. The palace hosted a small ceremony to honor the prince's accomplishments, and Emma was acknowledged not only as their teacher, but as a key figure in their growth. She gave a short speech, emphasizing the importance of curiosity, courage, and compassion. Her words were met with respect from the court, and the princes listened proudly. During the festivities, Kale approached her again. Teacher, now that your lessons are officially over, will you continue guiding us? Emma smiled. Yes, Kale. Lessons may formally end, but guidance, support, and friendship do not have a timetable. I will be here as long as I am needed, and perhaps even longer. Taris, standing beside KL, added quietly, You have become part of Zirion, human. Not by force, but by choice. That is rare. And respected. Levan grinned. And don't think you can slack off now. You'll still be our teacher, and we'll still challenge you. Emma laughed, a sound that echoed across the glowing palace gardens. She had expected formal respect, but this warmth, trust, and genuine connection was far more rewarding. Humans could inspire, she realized. They could shape minds and hearts in ways even the most advanced alien civilizations could not. That night, Emma stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The towers shimmered, the gardens glowed, and the stars stretched infinitely above. She reflected on her journey from a human sent to teach, to a mentor, guide, and friend, to three extraordinary princes. She had crossed galaxies, faced unknown challenges, and now she had a place here, among beings she had once considered alien. Kyle joined her quietly. "Teacher, thank you for everything." Emma placed a hand on his shoulder. "No, Kale. Thank you. You have taught me too about courage, responsibility, and the power of trust. We have learned together." Terrace approached, his expression thoughtful. "Human, you have changed the way we see the world, and the way we see ourselves. That is not a small thing." Lovan, grinning, added, "Yeah, you're stuck with us now. No excuses." Emma laughed softly. For the first time since arriving on Zirian, she felt completely at peace. Her lessons were over. Yes, but her journey had only just begun. She had formed bonds that transcended species, knowledge that would guide future generations, and a connection that reminded her why humans were capable of greatness in any corner of the universe. As the night sky shimmered over Zirian, Emma realized that the human teacher had not only taught the princes, but had also inspired a new way forward. A bridge between worlds built on knowledge, courage, and heart. And in that realization, she found a profound sense of purpose, fulfillment, and hope. The human teacher had arrived to teach, but she stayed to guide, inspire, and belong. And in doing so, she proved that humans, even far from Earth, could leave a mark on the stars.